Hey out there, all you Earth dwellers. You're tuned in to Earth School Radio, broadcasting straight to your soul. I'm your host, Sheila Say. Here on Earth School Radio, we'll dive into life's biggest questions, like what's my purpose, or how do I finally heal? Together we explore it all, soul contracts, tapping into our intuition, getting rid of resentment, and also some time travel, vibrational upgrades, and who are the galactics? And so much more, because I believe healing and waking up go hand in hand. So if you're ready to tune into your highest potential and live fully, you're in the right place. So grab a snack, lock in, and let's get into it. Welcome to the very first episode of Earth School Radio. I'm Sheila Say, and I want to thank you for being here. This has been a long time in the making. I'm very, very, very glad to be here. What if I told you that the hardest moments of your life, the trauma, the heartbreak, the unfairness, weren't random at all, but lessons that you actually chose before you were born? I know it sounds wild, but stay with me. In today's episode of Earth School Radio, we'll talk about why so many teachers from Edgar Cayce to Delores Cannon believe that Earth is a classroom for the soul. I'll share how that idea flipped my own story from victimhood to empowerment and the exact practices that helped me heal. Now, you might be wondering, who the hell am I? Who are you, Sheila? Why should I listen to you? Well, to that, I'll just keep it simple. For many, many years, I worked as an RN. I walked alongside people in their most vulnerable moments. I took care of high-risk obstetric patients, mamas who were pregnant and having problems with their pregnancies, and I loved it. I have 6 of my own children, and it felt completely natural. It was a calling. It's something I'm wired to do, to help people heal. But about 6 years ago, I had a very profound spiritual awakening that completely shifted my path in every way. When I say every way, I mean every way. I dove deep into energy healing. I completely changed my scope of practice to become a certified Reiki master. I learned herbal medicine, crystal healing, sound healing. I opened my own Reiki practice called Love and Light Reiki. I immersed myself in the question, what is happening in the world today? What do I know that is true? What's going on with humanity? And I found some hard truths about everything. And I healed. And I continue to heal. And I moved from caring for bodies to caring for souls, including my own. And what I found is what I want to share here, that life isn't random, and even our hardest struggles carry profound meaning. This podcast is my mission. I'm here to be real with you and together tap into the highest version of ourselves in this experience called Earth. So, why do we say that Earth is a school? I mean, how does anyone really know? Well, I guess we don't really, not in the way that we know math or science, but people throughout history, from mystics to channelers to philosophers, have said exactly that. Take Edgar Cayce, one of the most fascinating figures in American spiritual history. He was born in 1877. He lived a pretty ordinary life as a photographer in Kentucky, but he became known worldwide as the sleeping prophet. He would go into these deep trance states, and he gave over 14,000 detailed readings on health and past lives and reincarnation, and even the future of humanity. He was introducing ideas that we now take for granted. The mind-body connection, holistic healing. Some say he's like the father of homeopathy. Karma. Even the power of thought to shape reality. Way before Joe Dispenza. And he was saying all of this in the early 1900s, decades before yoga or meditation or natural medicine went mainstream. And he wasn't just talking theory. Many of his remedies, like people would come to him, and then he would like just tune into their energy and tell them what they needed to do, give them like a remedy, like castor oil packs or certain dietary practices. These things are still being used today. In fact, his life work birthed the ARE, the Association for Research and Enlightenment, which still exists in Virginia Beach. Cayce once said, "Earth is literally a place where souls come to learn." He always said that it all comes down to love. That love is what it's about. Every lifetime is another chance to practice it in all its messy forms, he said. So, I mean, he was kind of a cool dude. I love the fact that, way before all this stuff was mainstream, there are documented, they said over 14,000 documented. You could go look it up. Predictions and all kinds of stuff. He was just a super cool guy. He even made psychic predictions. He once predicted that a portion of Atlantis's temple, like the lost city of Atlantis, might be discovered near a place called Bimini he said in 1968 or 1969. And later that decade, explorers did actually publicize something called the Bimini Road, and it was like a submerged rock formation off the Bahamas, and they said it was a possible remnant of a lost civilization. Ding, 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 ding. Could it really be the lost city of Atlantis' ruins? I don't know, but it was definitely a wild coincidence. And, I just love this guy. One time he apparently rode a mule that everybody in town knew couldn't be ridden. Everybody tried to get on it, and they always got kicked off. But Cayce, he rode that mule home like he did it every day. And everybody said he did it very calmly. I guess the mule decided that his aura was good or something. It was like a big folk hero moment. He could do things that others couldn't. Just blows me away. And then, that Earth School theory comes from another giant in the metaphysical world, Delores Cannon. I mean, she's one of the big catalysts for a lot of the change in ways of thinking that I have. And I'll tell you why. She was a Navy wife in the 1960s, and her husband did hypnosis. They did come to me and we'll help you, lose weight or stop smoking. And by accident, while she was using hypnosis to help a fellow Navy wife with what was called nervous eating, the client suddenly started recounting memories of 5 past lives. This was unheard of at the time and shocked her. She was like, what in the world is going on? She started talking about things like reincarnation, everything. And these things weren't mainstream topics, but it fascinated her. And she started exploring past life regression therapy. And, kind of changed her scope of practice like I did, and developed her own techniques to access these deeper layers of consciousness. She saw that she was tapping into like a wealth of information. These people would just start talking about things they have no earthly idea about. But it's when they were in this hypnotic state. Eventually, she developed her own method called quantum healing hypnosis therapy, QHHT. And through thousands of sessions, people reported memories of past lives, of life between lives, encounters with other dimensions, and even cosmic perspectives. And over, they all said the same thing. We chose to come here. Earth, they said, is like a master class. It's dense, it's chaotic, it's tough. And that's exactly why it's effective. I mean, think about the military. You have these elite forces, the Green Berets and the Navy SEALs. That shit's hard. They have to go through hell. But at the end of it, they're like this elite force. And that's kind of like, what we do when we come to Earth. We take on these lessons. We do this, we sign up for our tour of duty. And then, hopefully we become something more. We evolve. We expand. So, anyway, Cannon went on to write more than 19 books, including the Convoluted Universe series. If you have ever heard a term like starseeds or even waves of volunteers, that's her language. She cracked open the idea that we aren't here by accident. We're here with purpose. After, hearing some of these clips and stuff, after seeing so many things that she was coming across with, I was intrigued. So I downloaded her book called The Three Waves of Volunteers and the New Earth. And I was floored. I couldn't stop listening. Okay? I mean, it was groundbreaking stuff for me. In the book, she explains that many of the souls alive today actually volunteered to come here during this huge shift in Earth's vibration. And I mean, if you have to be living under a rock not to see that something's going on in the world today, on the Earth. Everything is changing. The Schumann resonance, solar flares, there's just so much happening. She described in the book 3 waves of volunteers that came to Earth to, help this transition. The first wave of volunteers was born after World War II. These were considered the pioneers, the souls who struggled with the heaviness of Earth, but helped break old patterns. A lot of the hippies in the 60s were from this wave. So you can see how, it was a huge shift. It was like, everybody went from, I'm going to fulfill my role. I'm going to be a wife. I'm going to be a secretary. I'm going to do this. And, everybody was doing their thing. And then in the 60s, it was like, make love, not war. And, the Vietnam War happened and people were rebelling against it and saying, nah, F that. And so they started this wave. The second wave, born mainly in the 70s and 80s, shout out to my Gen Xers, they carry a stabilizing energy. They raise the frequency of others just by being here. There's something about, certain people that have volunteered to come here that carry a vibration of change, of whatever it is they're here to do. And the third wave, the children born in the 90s and beyond, are already wired for higher consciousness. It's in the DNA. They get here and there's these little packets of information inside their DNA that starts to activate when different things happen. And together, these volunteers are ushering in this new age. They're helping humanity shift into what Delores called the new Earth, a higher vibration version of reality based on love and unity and expansion, not based on hate and separation and, contraction, which is what I see a lot of today. It's like we're right in the middle of all this change, and it's just a powerful time to be alive. So anyway, the idea of humans coming here to Earth as a school is corroborated many times over through her work. She has a whole nother book about we'll talk about it in a little while, but so anyway, the theme repeats. Earth is a classroom, and that raises a question. So if Earth is a classroom and we make these choices and we come here and we're supposed to be quote unquote learning lessons, what lesson are you in right now? That's the question. Stop and think. For me, that lesson has been about perspective. And I'm just going to be real for a minute and just share a little bit. For a long time, as an adult and as a teen, I carried this deep anger about how unfair I felt like my life was. There was some trauma, the betrayals, childhood pain. I lived in a constant state of this hidden thing that would get triggered in me, this insecurity, this doubt, this lack of self-worth. But when I came across the idea that maybe, just maybe, my soul had actually chosen the circumstances that I was born in, even the painful ones, everything shifted. What if, what if my soul actually did say, yes, I'll take that childhood. I'll face those struggles. I'll carry those wounds. because I know that they're going to teach me resilience, compassion, strength. It hearkening back to that military metaphor. You sign up for it. You carry you endure the pain because you know it's going to teach you resilience and strength and blah, blah, blah. So yeah, what if people who hurt me, they were part of that choosing, playing the tough roles so that I could learn boundaries or forgiveness or self-worth? So it kind of it forces you to look at the people in your lives, these relationships that you have, especially with family members who might challenge you a whole lot and may have put you in situations that, were fucked up and you were pissed for a long part of your life. And then you get to this point in the spiritual awakening stuff where you kind of pull your awareness outside of your egoic mind, and you start to be the observer, and you start to see things differently. And that perspective flipped the whole entire script for me. Suddenly I wasn't just a victim. I was a student in a classroom facing hard lessons and gaining wisdom that I couldn't have gotten any other way. And it didn't excuse what happened, but it gave it meaning. And meaning is powerful medicine. When you can sit there and go, I know why that happened. I can see it now. I understand it. When I really came to the realization that my soul chose the circumstances of my life, that's when everything changed for me. The concept of this planning our lives is often referred to as a soul contract. There have been several key people associated with the idea. There was a hypnotherapist named Michael Newton who also wrote about his client sessions, just like Delores Cannon. So, you have this collection of people who are doing like regressive therapy and hypnosis, and they're all coming up with the same stuff. It's hard to deny. And then he also wrote a book. In 1994, he wrote this book called Journey of Souls. And then in 2000, he wrote another book, like a follow-up to it, called Destiny of Souls. And in these books, he recounts this intricate model of the life between lives, details how souls make rebirth plans. They have help from spirit guides and other souls. And then, likewise, Delores Cannon had a book. She wrote it in 1993 called Between Death and Life, Conversations with a Spirit. This was her foundational book on this subject. And in this book, she recounts her client sessions where clients describe what they experienced after death and before their next reincarnation. The sessions revealed a spirit world where souls reflect on their past lives and make plans for their future ones. So I just wanted to go into a little bit of detail about what the souls that she documented described. So the first thing that, most of them describe is a life review after death, where a soul undergoes a loving, non-judgmental life review of the life just completed. They sit and they go, okay, what was I supposed to be doing? Oh, I see how I did that. Oh, I struggled with that. Oh, I made it through that. That's great. Oh, I'm so proud of myself. I'm assuming that's how it goes. Anyway, the next thing they all talked about was the, apparent involvement of spirit guides and soul groups. So your soul interacts with a council of wise beings and its own soul group, which is a tight-knit group of souls who often incarnate together to help each other learn and evolve. That's why sometimes you'll meet someone. Your soul group could be somebody that you work with. It could be somebody in your yoga class. It could be your sister. It could be anybody. It really could. And a lot of times you'll recognize it. You'll meet someone and you'll be like, God, I feel like I've known you forever. And you just click and you just understand each other. And there's like this unspoken connection. So that kind of explains that. The other thing, pre-birth planning. This was where the soul will choose specific challenges or relationships in the upcoming life. A soul will choose its gender, a family, physical health issues. the time and place of birth to align with the astrology. So everybody says Virgos are this way, Cancers are this way, Capricorns act this way. There's certain elements of their personality. And so you would choose, I'm going to be born this time of year and blah, blah, blah. Because those provide the lessons that it needs to learn. So, for instance, choosing to be born in a poor, war-torn area could provide lessons in resilience and gratitude. The books even recount sessions where clients will talk about how souls plan specific milestones or traumatic events, car accidents, divorces, addiction, loss of a loved one. They're not seen as pointless, but as pivotal learning opportunities. So they'll choose it, you'll come, and then things manifest as they will, but those are kind of ingrained in your experience. The next thing is life purpose and gifts. It's talked about in the book that the soul decides on a general purpose or dharma for its life and selects certain gifts and talents to activate in order to express its divinity, your connection to God, your creatorship. Souls choose these scenarios to learn lessons that are difficult to master in the non-physical realm. Earth, with its physical, dense reality, based in this duality, is viewed as a school for learning through experience. And some of the most common lessons include empathy and compassion. Experiencing hardship from different perspectives allows a soul to learn deeper empathy. So, say a soul agrees to be victimized in some way in one life. In the next life, they choose to be the aggressor in order to fully understand both sides of the dynamic. You understand, oh my gosh, in that life review, you finally get it. It all ties together. You're like, oh, and it resolves those things. Unconditional love is another one. Each is seen as a place to learn love, just like Edgar Cayce said, especially when it's difficult. Especially when it's difficult. Sheesh. I mean, do you know anybody that's hard to love? So, that also includes loving yourself, I might add. Learning to love yourself is a huge, huge lesson. Forgiving others, recognizing that love is unconditional, not conditional. Forgiveness is another theme that souls will choose to experience. A soul will choose relationships with people that will hurt them, creating situations where the soul can learn and practice forgiveness. Other lessons and situations would be centered around resilience and strength, or balance and inner peace, self-worth and acceptance. These accounts also made it very, very clear, though, that while the soul makes a plan, free will is always active. The human mind can choose to follow or deviate from the soul's original intention. I mean, you get here on Earth as a baby, you're born, and you don't remember. You have amnesia. You have this veil of forgetfulness where you don't realize that you're divine. You don't realize that you're coming here to learn these quote-unquote lessons. You're just experiencing it. And, that mission, that thing that you're supposed to do, that plan is enmeshed in your soul blueprint. And through life and through experiences, hopefully something will happen that acts as a catalyst to kind of wake you up and make you look at things differently than you maybe looked at them before. And open your mind and open your heart. So Edgar Cayce reminded us, each soul enters the material experience for the purpose of developing toward the ideal, to know and to be one with the Creator. Delores Cannon documented clients who remembered planning their lives like students setting up a curriculum. In one of her sessions, this lady said, "We pick the experiences that will bring the greatest growth, even if they are the hardest ones to go through." And if that's true, then every painful moment carries purpose. Every relationship, even the messy ones, is part of the syllabus. And when I freaking got that, when I embraced that, the weight of what I had carried from childhood lifted. I realized it wasn't meaningless suffering. It kind of like, it pulled me out of victimhood. It was part of my soul's expansion, and that realization that I chose this gave me back my power. Because if I chose it, then I can use it. And if I signed up for this class, then I can graduate from it. So here's the big question. Now that we know we're on this journey, we have purpose, with all this baggage, all this trauma, all this messiness of being human, you're sitting there and you're like, okay, so my husband left me and I had to file bankruptcy. I lost my business. I was, endured child abuse. What the hell do we actually do with all that? How do we go from taking the perspective of Earth as a school and apply it to our daily lives? How does that change us? How do we learn the lessons? How do we move through the pain and come out the other side with a greater understanding of who we are, of the bigger picture, and what it means to graduate to the next level of consciousness? Well, for me, the answer has come through practice, through doing things, changing things in my everyday life. Not theory, not believing in it, not just getting a book from the library or whatever, glancing at it and saying, oh, yeah, I believe I'm a badass or whatever, but actually living it one choice at a time. And there are 5 practices in particular that have completely transformed the way that I move through life, the way I see things, kind of from that conscious observer perspective. And they're tools that have helped me shift from victim to student, and from just surviving to learning and growing. That's what it's about. So I'm going to break it down here for you. The first one of my 5 tools that helped me actually change my freaking life was meditation. Duh. Meditation. Everybody who's anybody in the spiritual community will tell you, Edgar Cayce, Delores Cannon, anybody will tell you meditation is crucial. Meditation was the turning point for me. Honestly, I had never meditated before, and I wasn't sure that I could even do it. And I remember I was on Netflix, and there was a series, like 5 little videos, I don't know, maybe 10-15 minutes, and I can't remember. Oh my gosh, they were about meditation. They were like little cartoony. They talked about meditation, and I was like really into it. So I watched all those, and I kind of participated in these little meditations, and I was like, that's good. I like that. And then another night after that, I was scrolling on my phone, and I found this app called Synctuition. And Synctuition, I guess now it's called Mind Spa. But I just clicked on it, and I thought, let me see what this is about. And I did a free trial. And let me see if I can find... Let me see. I want to see if I can find a clip of what it sounded like. I think I have one. All right, so listen to this. This is what Synctuition kind of sounded like.
Close your eyes now and just listen. Something powerful has aligned in your favor today. Call it destiny, call it divine timing, but everything you've lived through, every twist and turn, has led you right here to this very moment. The question is, what will you do with it? Will you step forward? Will you embrace the final invitation? The invitation to awaken the gift within you, to trust it, grow it, and rise into the deeper knowing that's always been waiting.
Ooh, so cool. It was so freaking cool. So yeah, it's this immersive experience. You put these headphones on, and it was like a whole new world opened up. The sounds, the journeys, each journey was like gratitude, or, some of them were just like stories, like, the cabin in the woods. And you just kind of go on this experience through sound, and it was just incredible. It was the first time I realized that meditation didn't have to be about just sitting in a room emptying your mind, because my freaking mind never feels empty, and sitting still, and I never sit still. And it was about, once I started doing it, it was about this expansion, about creating space, about connecting with something bigger. And I really started to crave it. Meditation became my daily ritual. I'd get up in the morning and do it before I'd go to work, in the shower. I meditated all the time. It felt so freaking good to actually just kind of give myself permission to sit and do nothing and just be. And it was a challenge sometimes. Some days I did these long guided meditations from YouTube. There was a guy named Jason Stevenson who has a just extensive library of guided meditations. And then other days, it was just a few minutes in the car as I drove, using my breath and just presence and just grounding into my body as the anchor. And then a friend recommended Ram Dass, let me borrow a book of his, and I listened to a few of his guided meditations, and they were different and wonderful. Some days I just can't sit still, but I still need that connection, and I'm going to do whatever. So some days I'm going to just listen to music that elevates my mood or a frequency. There's this guy I found, his name's Londrell. He's awesome. He kind of combines frequencies and guided meditation in his, kind of, I don't know, chill R&B style. It's really amazing. Love him. So you can listen to that in your headphones while you're getting ready for work or just out loud. Also, the other thing that I find is like meditation, but it's like an active meditation, is my art. When I went through this awakening, it was like all of a sudden I was like, I gotta get it out of me. There was like this thing in me that had to come out. So I started buying canvases and paint pens, and I just started doodling, and this shit just came out of me, and it's like psychedelic trippy art. But it's amazing. You can be very conscious about your food. You can start looking at your, creating what you're cooking as your art. If you're in your garden and you're planting things, or your flowers, or decorating your house, or playing an instrument, it doesn't matter. There's that, when you connect and you're like, really focusing on authentic creation, there's really just no way to end there's no end to the ways to connect with your inner self. It's really just your God self, that fractal of God or source that broke off into your soul's energetic signature. It's the you that is connected to everything. And when you meditate, you connect with that. And I call it my higher self. And here's the thing, meditation isn't about being perfect. It's just about showing up. Science actually shows it literally reshapes the brain, strengthening areas tied to focus, compassion, and calm, while quieting the parts that fuel anxiety and stress. Spirituality is a doorway, the place where your soul gets a chance to whisper to you. For me, it's become the practice that keeps me rooted when life is like, going off the rails. The pause button that brings me back to myself. And once you taste that stillness, especially when you've lived in a state of fight or flight for a very, 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 very long time, you will always come back to that. That will be something that you're like, yeah, that helps. So just don't get stuck by the idea that it has to be done sitting in the lotus position with your mind blank and just trying, whatever. Just trying to get through it all with the monkey mind. Just be patient and open. That's the key. So the next step, the next tool that became foundational for me in changing and, kind of working through all of this trauma and stuff was breath work. And, I'll just say breath work is really an offshoot to meditation. It is meditation, but different. And when I say breath work, I'm not talking about like, these, if you've seen these videos on Instagram of people sitting in a circle and everybody's screaming and writhing. I mean the deep intentional practice of using the breath to regulate the nervous system, to release trauma, and to connect with higher states of consciousness. Breath work is one of the most powerful tools that we have because it works on every level, body, mind, and soul. Physically, it shifts us out of stress and into healing by instantly calming the nervous system, lowering cortisol, improving circulation, and even reducing inflammation. And then for the mind, it's like hitting a reset button, changing your breath, taking a big deep breath and just stopping what you're doing. It changes your actual brain waves. It moves you from anxious, busy thinking into a calmer, more creative, intuitive state. And then on a soul level, breath has always been seen as sacred, the life force, the breath of spirit. I say that the breath is the Holy Spirit. When we breathe with intention, we quiet that ego, that fearful, self-doubt and all that stuff that we're constantly going over and over in loops in our brain. It quiets all that down, and it allows us to reconnect to our higher self, that part of us that is connected directly to Source, to God, and to the collective, to every other human being on the planet right now. We are all connected as one because we all come from the same place. In short, breathwork detoxes the body, it clears the mind, and it awakens the soul. And for me, I didn't really know where to begin. I'd heard about breathwork, it looked really hard. But one day I was on YouTube and I saw a video. It was called Breathwork Meditation for Meeting Your Higher Self. And I was like, I think I want to meet my higher self. And it became my very first real introduction to breathwork. It came through this beautiful man named Niraj Naik, the creator of Soma Breath Method. Now, he has such an interesting story that kind of mimics my own journey. And so I guess maybe that's why I was kind of drawn to him. He actually started out as a pharmacist, and after struggling with his own health crisis, he kind of turned from conventional medicine and into more holistic practices. And out of that journey, he created this thing called Soma Breath, which blends ancient yogic pranayama with music and rhythm and guided intention, and it's just really funky, and I loved it. What I really loved about it when I first found it is that it made the breath work fun and powerful at the same time. You can literally feel the shift in your body when you're going through this breath work process. He counts, and it's to this beautiful music, and you kind of end up in this calm, centered, blissed out state. Through the process, you go through these breathing techniques, and it's just all guided. And at one point, he tells you, now take a deep breath in and hold it. And you're sitting there, and I'm holding it, and I'm kind of in this weird, I feel like I'm just existing, and I don't, I'm holding my breath, and I'm like, how the freaking hell am I holding my breath this long? And he's like, and when you get that urge to take another deep breath, hold it a little longer. And when you do that, it shifts, man. It totally shifts your body. And it really gave me a framework for how to come back to my center, even when the shit is hitting the fan, and give me some tool, and that's what this is about. This is about what are the tools to help you when you're going through some of this traumatic stuff and you're realizing some of this stuff and you're kind of trying to work through it. And so I don't always do Soma breath. It was just the introduction, and I do it every once in a while. And so over time, I developed my own simple process because we don't always have time to sit down and listen to a YouTube video for 20 minutes and do all this breath work. But you can do something simple. And so I developed my own process that I use daily to center myself. I just, spend some time before anything else starts to divert my attention for the day, usually. And, I'll just sit, and I call it 5 deep breaths. Groundbreaking, huh? Each breath has an intention, And it's not always the same, but usually the first one will just be to be aware of your body. So I'll sit and I'll breathe in. And I'm just being aware of my body. And then I'll breathe out. And then breath 2 will be, I usually will say, breathe in spirit. And I'm just, that life force energy. I'm focusing on drawing that life force energy into my body. And then on the exhale, releasing anything stagnant, anything that's not serving my highest good. And I do that. And by the 5th one, my whole system is aligned again with my higher self, with God. So whether you try soma breath or just practice something as simple as 5 intentional breaths, I really do believe that breath work is one of the most powerful tools that we have for stepping out of stress and bringing yourself into the present moment. And the beautiful thing is, once the breath softens the body and quiets the mind, it creates the space for something even deeper. And that is actually feeling what we've been holding inside. Because breath can open the door. It is the Holy Spirit to me. It is like God, you're breathing in God. And when you do that, especially if you're holding things in, it brings it to the surface. And it's our willingness to step through that, to acknowledge and validate our emotions, that really allows the healing to unfold. And that brings us to the 3rd life-changing tool or practice that I found that helped walk me through that. And it, appropriately named, acknowledging and validating your feelings. One of the most overlooked parts of healing is simply allowing ourselves to feel what we freaking feel. And I'm going to tell you, as a Reiki practitioner, this is it. So many of us, especially those of us who went through childhood trauma, where it all starts for many of us, the instinct was to bury the emotions just to survive. If you didn't have parental support or guidance or anybody that was walking you through the traumatic shit that you went through, you just kind of compartmentalized it, filed it away, and, managed through other means to just get through your life. And what we suppress never goes away. It lives in the body. It lives in the nervous system, in your energy field. And that's why you get triggered when certain things happen. It pisses you off, or it makes you feel unworthy, or you just go into deep depression. There are things that happen in our lives that we hold in our system. And that's why acknowledging and validating your feelings is so powerful. It's like turning on the light in a room that's been dark for years. And when you say to yourself, yes, what I went through was painful, and it hurt, and I was scared, and I felt abandoned, and whatever it is, you say you felt it, and you feel it, and you sometimes have to sit in meditation and kind of sit with those emotions and journal them, and however it is that you need to process through acknowledging and validating your feelings about anything. Once you do that, it's okay to feel it. There's so many layers to this work. But as you do it, you begin to integrate the part of yourself, your inner child, instead of pushing it down and allowing it to stay buried. You acknowledge it, and you just say, I know that was hard for you, and I'm feeling into it, and I'm just really just sending love to that little girl who needed it and didn't have it. And it's not about wallowing in the pain. It's about honoring it, damn it. And when we honor our feelings instead of dismissing them, they start to freaking move. They stop controlling us, and they become our teachers instead of allowing these things to wreak havoc on our lives in this endless loop of bitterness and anxiety and depression. This is the essence of the phrase, you have to feel it to heal it. And if this idea really speaks to you, there are some amazing teachers who go much deeper into this work. I love Sue Morter's book, The Energy Codes, And then there's Bradley Nelson, who also wrote a book called The Emotion Code. It's all about the codes. I love the Da Vinci Code too. But anyway, both of those books explored how emotions get lodged in the body and how these simple practices that they teach can help free them from the body and the mind and the energy body. There is absolutely no shortage of wisdom on this topic. Actually, science and spirit are saying the same thing. Your feelings matter. They're valid. And when you give yourself permission to fully feel them, you open the door to healing. And what I want to say about that is it's important that you acknowledge your feelings and that you come through that. And sometimes you're going to find that relationships challenge you in this healing process, that you're acknowledging feelings, but maybe other people are not. And maybe the people that were involved in part of the trauma or part of the pain and abuse or whatever, and they're not acknowledging it, and that seems to hold you back. And what I want to tell you is that through the process of acknowledging and validating your feelings, that is all you need. You need to acknowledge it yourself. You need to give yourself love. You need to walk through it stronger and braver and come out the other side. And if somebody doesn't acknowledge that with you, that's okay. You don't need their approval. You don't need their forgiveness. As long as it's something that you're walking through and your spirit says, this feels better, then you do that. Okay? I just wanted to say that. And I would be remiss if I didn't mention to maybe seek out an energy medicine practitioner, because that's what we do. We work with the energy body. We work with this stuff that's stuck in your energy body and properly vet them. Look at the reviews, ask around. But as a Reiki healer, I have seen the power of this work to help release long-held pain and trauma in the body and the energy bodies. And once we've given our emotions the space to be seen and felt, then the next step is finding a place to release and restore. And for me, that place has always been nature. Mother Nature, Pachamama, Mama Gaia, being in nature in some way every day. Here's what I know. We are nature. And here's what I love. Science is actually catching up to what our souls already know. When you go into nature, when you're removed from all the chaos of life and emails and work and soccer practice and cooking dinner and cleaning house and mowing grass and all the crap that we have to do, and you're just in nature and you're just relaxing, there is something that, it's just beautiful. It resets you. There's studies showing that when we spend time in nature, especially when we connect directly with the earth, like walking barefoot or sitting under a tree, it literally changes our physiology. Researchers call it grounding or earthing. It's when your bare skin touches the earth. Free electrons from the ground flow into your body, and that helps to neutralize these things called free radicals. These excess things that are floating through your body, these bad dudes that are like, let's cause some inflammation, let's cause cancer, let's do this, let's do that, when it builds up enough. And when you connect to the earth, it means that it's allowing less oxidative stress in your body, which is one of the root causes of inflammation. In fact, there was a paper published in the Journal of Environmental and Public Health that found that grounding practices were linked to, hear me say this, measurable decreases in inflammation, improved immune responses, and even better sleep quality. And then there's other studies that have shown that grounding lowers cortisol, balances the nervous system, and reduces pain levels in people with chronic conditions. So, when I say walking in the woods or lying in the grass recharges me like plugging in my phone recharges my phone, it's not poetic. It's actually measurable. Nature is literally medicine for our energy field, our nervous system, and our physical body. Because what did I say at the beginning? We are nature. Walking outside, grounding barefoot, sitting under a tree is medicine for your body and your soul. And now science is catching up, showing how grounding and time in nature recalibrates our nervous system. So, it recharges and grounds me. It also opens me up. Some of those times in nature are the most powerful, powerful meditative moments I've had ever in my life. It clears the noise, and it just kind of brings you into this frequency where you can receive. So I can actually hear the new wisdom that's coming in. And that's the next piece. Let's talk about wisdom. How do you attain wisdom? Well, experience, but learning. Because once we're grounded, you have to stay curious. You have to keep questioning and seek out the deeper truths that help us grow. I mean, you can't exist in the world today and go, look at the news or what's happening in the world and go, damn, we've been lied to about a lot of different things, or the truth has been withheld from us. Okay, so in my journey, it was like, let me find out what those truths are. Let me investigate. My investigative self came out, and I was like, I need to know. And I don't just mean reading a book here or there, or downloading a book on Audible and listening to one chapter and calling it, seeking out wisdom. I mean really actively seeking out wisdom, asking questions, daring to look at the beliefs that you were handed and saying, wait, is this really true for me? Do I believe this because I was told to believe this? Or do I believe this because it really, really resonates with me? If Earth really is a school, then we are meant to be curious students. We're meant to push beyond the surface level narrative and explore new perspectives, even when they challenge what we thought we knew. Because if we only ever accept what we're told, then we stop growing. But when we stay open, open-minded, open-hearted, we create space for truth to reveal itself in ways that we couldn't even have imagined. The openness is how we evolve. It's how we move from living on autopilot. Oh, this is what I do. I go to work. I'm this. I'm a mom. I'm a soccer mom. I'm a dad. I go to my job every day. I pay my bills. That's living on autopilot, to living consciously, intentionally, and awake. Because here's the bigger picture. Humanity itself is in a collective classroom. You're not just in the classroom. We, as a whole, this whole humanity experience is for a reason. Earth is a spirit. Earth is alive. She is experiencing this ascension to a higher level of consciousness just like we are. And as we evolve, she evolves. We are being asked to move from competition to cooperation, from separation to connection, and from fear-driven survival to love-driven creation. And that starts with us, one soul at a time. Now, learning, let's talk about it. Specifically, I will say for me, what did I do? I scrolled like crazy. I was on Spirit Talk and Instagram, and I started curating a feed that would give me good things, that would enlighten me, that would give me information that kind of stirred my creative juices. And I started a trial of the Gaia channel. I know some people are going to be like, the Gaia channel. But anyway, I did. And there were 2 significant series on that channel that changed my life. The first one, Joe Dispenza's Rewired series, and Greg Braden's Missing Links. Now, these guys are heavyweights in the world of science and spirituality. They bring the goods. Dispenza is a trained chiropractor. The guy, oh my God, it's just amazing. He was like a triathlete or something, and he was in this bike race, and he got hit by a car, and his whole body, he was paralyzed. He was in the hospital, and they were like, you got to have this surgery to realign your spine and hopefully get your movement back. And he was like, no, because before this all happened, he was on this journey himself about self-healing and about tapping into your body's own ability to heal itself. And So he was like, no, and they thought he was crazy. So they, gave him a psych consult, and he was like, no, I don't want to do it. I want to take the time to tap into my body's higher learning, higher system, the hard drive, tap into that and tell it what to do. And man, it's fascinating. This is where I learned that thoughts create reality. Joe Dispenza is incredible. And then Greg Braden, if you've never heard of him, right now, the last episode that I watched of the Joe Rogan podcast was with Greg Braden. And I mean, go look at the comments. The dude is just incredible. His show on Gaia was called Missing Links, and it walks you through humanity and our origins and where did we come from and what happened to take us from this, basic Homo sapien to this evolved version of ourselves. And, he talks about the science of it all. He's a trained geologist. He's kind of that guy that's got white hair and it sticks up and it kind of looks a little wacky. And you're kind of like, I don't know what this guy's about. But I mean to tell you, he is literally just a wealth of information. And it appealed to my sciencey, nerdy, evidence-based information self, as well as it sent my spiritual spidey senses into overdrive. It started to really resonate with me. And you'll find that when you search, when you are curious and you want to know about things, you do a search and you start looking at different things. You start reading this book and looking at that article and hearing this podcast, and you want to know about whatever it is you want to know about healing yourself, about frequencies, about whatever. You've got to take the initiative to really connect with your higher self. And this really helped me integrate some of their concepts into my own life. And bottom line, I cannot recommend those two guys enough. Even without Gaia or the series, there is a plethora of interviews and such on YouTube from both of them to introduce you to their ideas. And so that was it. That was the fifth tool, learning, that you have to commit to if you're going to change your life, if you're going to walk through this and change how you approach your life here on Earth. So here's your Earth School homework. Don't worry, it's gentle. This week, when something difficult comes up, instead of asking, what the freak, man, why is this happening to me? Try asking, all right, what is this supposed to teach me? And you sit with it, and you journal it, and you breathe through it, and you see how it shifts the way you experience your life. You kind of suck yourself out of that egoic mind, and you become the conscious observer. You're like, okay, this same thing keeps happening, and especially if it's something that seems to be a repetitive cycle, the same behavioral issues with your kids and you're butting heads about it, or, your same arguments with your spouse about the same issue. This is your reflection time. Okay? So just start to look at things a little differently and invite your higher self to kind of give you some information about what you're supposed to be learning from it. And so before we go, I want to leave you with this reflection. Why did I choose to come to Earth at this time? Not the version of you that pays bills or answers emails, but the soul that chose this incarnation. What are you here to remember? What are you here to help transform? Think about those things this week. And now, take a breath with me. I want you to just take a big, slow, deep breath in your nose. Breathe in that life force energy. Let it energize you, activate you, hold it. And exhale, releasing old patterns, letting go of limiting beliefs. Beautiful. You don't need all the answers today, but you do have the right to ask. And the asking, that is where the transformation begins. So if something landed for you today, share this episode with someone who's waking up too. follow and subscribe and come back, because next time we're going to explore a whole new frequency. We're going to talk about where this Earth School journey might be leading us and what New Earth is really about. Until then, stay open, stay grounded, and keep your dial tuned to love. This is Earth School Radio.